There are moments in history when the past behaves as expected, slow, incremental, predictable. Civilizations rise, knowledge accumulates, tools evolve in quiet sequence. And then, rarely, something appears that does not belong to its time, something that feels misplaced, almost intrusive, as if a fragment of a different era has been embedded deep within the ancient world. The Antikythera Mechanism is one such object. For centuries, we have understood ancient technology within certain limits. We have admired the engineering of Rome, the mathematics of Greece, the astronomy of Babylon. But these were, in our understanding, stepping stones, early movements toward a much later sophistication. And yet, buried beneath the sea for over 2,000 years, this device waited. Silent. Corroded. Complex beyond expectation. And this is where the contradiction begins. What if the ancient world knew more than we have allowed ourselves to believe? What if, in some isolated moment, human ingenuity surged far ahead of its time, only to be forgotten, lost, and erased by history itself? The Antikythera Mechanism does not shout these questions. It whispers them, and the deeper we look, the more difficult it becomes to ignore what it suggests. The story begins in the Hellenistic period, a time when Greek culture stretched across vast territories following the conquests of Alexander the Great. This was an age of intellectual expansion. Centers like Alexandria became repositories of knowledge, where scholars studied mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy with remarkable rigor. Figures such as Archimedes and Hipparchus were not anomalies. They were part of a broader intellectual current that sought to understand the cosmos with precision. Within this world, the study of celestial motion held particular importance. The movements of the sun, the moon, and the visible planets were not only matters of curiosity, but of practical necessity. Calendars, agriculture, navigation, all depended on the sky. Greek astronomers developed geometric models to predict these movements, relying on cycles and patterns observed over generations. But here is the unsettling part. While we have extensive written records of their theories, we have found almost no surviving physical instruments of comparable sophistication. Their ideas, it seemed, were preserved in texts, not machines. The assumption was simple. The technology to embody such complexity did not yet exist in mechanical form. And then, in the early 20th century, that assumption began to fracture. In 1901, sponge divers working near the small Greek island of Antikythera stumbled upon the remains of a shipwreck. The vessel lay at a depth of around 45 meters, scattered across the seabed. It was an ancient Roman-era ship, likely dating to the 1st century BCE, carrying a cargo of statues, ceramics, and luxury goods. The discovery itself was remarkable, but not unprecedented. At first, the recovered objects seemed typical of a wealthy transport vessel. Marble statues emerged from the sea, their forms encrusted with centuries of marine growth. Bronze artifacts followed, some fragmented, others surprisingly intact. Among these pieces was a lump of corroded bronze and wood, unremarkable in appearance, easily overlooked. It was not immediately recognized for what it was. Months later, as the artifacts were examined in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, a Greek archaeologist named Spiridon Stais noticed something unusual within the corroded mass. Embedded in the fragments were gear-like structures, circular forms with teeth, arranged in patterns that did not resemble decoration or coincidence. This was not a statue. This was not cargo. This was a machine. And this is where history begins to bend. Over the following decades, the fragments were studied with increasing attention. Early examinations revealed that the mechanism had once been housed in a wooden case, roughly the size of a shoebox. Inside were dozens of interlocking bronze gears, finely crafted and precisely aligned. The craftsmanship alone was extraordinary. The smallest gear teeth measured just a few millimeters, cut with a level of precision that suggested advanced tooling. But the true significance lay not in the craftsmanship, but in the design. In the mid-20th century, the British historian of science Derek de Solla Price conducted one of the first detailed analyses of the mechanism using X-ray imaging. What he uncovered was staggering. The gears were not random. They formed a complex system capable of modeling astronomical cycles. The device, it appeared, was an analog computer. Further studies, including modern CT scans, revealed even more detail. The mechanism contained at least 30 gears, arranged to track the movements of the sun and the moon, predict lunar eclipses, and even account for the irregular orbit of the moon through a sophisticated system of epicyclic gearing. It could display the phases of the moon and align them with calendar cycles. Some researchers believe it may have also tracked the positions of known planets. This is not myth. This is metal. The front dial likely displayed the zodiac and the Egyptian calendar, while the back featured spiral dials that represented longer cycles, such as the Metonic cycle of 19 years and the Saros cycle used to predict eclipses. Inscriptions found on the fragments, written in ancient Greek, served as a kind of user manual, explaining the functions and guiding the operator. The level of integration is what unsettles historians. Each gear had a purpose. Each ratio corresponded to a known astronomical cycle. The entire system functioned as a predictive model of the cosmos, encoded not in abstract equations, but in rotating bronze. And yet, no other device like it has been found from that period. This absence raises difficult questions. If such technology existed, where are its predecessors? Where are its successors? Why does the archaeological record remain silent? The mainstream explanation is cautious. Scholars suggest that the Antikythera mechanism represents a rare convergence of knowledge and craftsmanship, possibly originating from a specialized workshop in the Hellenistic world. It may have been commissioned by a wealthy patron, used for education or demonstration rather than practical navigation. Its complexity, in this view, does not imply widespread technological advancement, but rather an isolated peak, an extraordinary achievement that was not widely replicated. This interpretation aligns with what we know of ancient scholarship. Figures like Archimedes were known to construct mechanical devices, some of which were described in ancient texts, but have not survived. It is possible that the Antikythera mechanism belongs to this tradition, a lost lineage of experimental instruments. But here is the lingering uncertainty. If such devices existed, even in limited numbers, why did the knowledge not persist? The Roman world, which inherited much of Greek culture, does not appear to have continued this line of mechanical innovation. By the medieval period, the complexity seen in the Antikythera mechanism would not reappear until the development of astronomical clocks over a millennium later. History does not break easily. But here, it bends. Alternative interpretations remain within the boundaries of scholarly debate. Some researchers argue that the mechanism may indicate a broader, now lost tradition of mechanical engineering in the ancient world, one that left few traces due to the fragility of materials and the selective nature of preservation. Others suggest that the device's apparent uniqueness is a result of chance. Shipwrecks are rare windows into the past, and it is possible that similar instruments simply have not been discovered. There is also the question of transmission. Knowledge in the ancient world was often localized, dependent on individual schools and teachers. The destruction of centers like the Library of Alexandria, combined with political upheaval and shifting cultural priorities, may have disrupted the continuity of technical knowledge. In such a context, even remarkable innovations could vanish within a few generations. And still, the mechanism remains. In the 1970s, the oceanographer Jacques Cousteau revisited the Antikythera wreck, recovering additional fragments and confirming the ship's date to around 7060 BCE. Modern research continues to refine our understanding, using advanced imaging techniques to reconstruct the device in digital form. Each new study reveals more detail, more precision, more intention. But no study has fully resolved the central tension. The Antikythera mechanism is not merely an artifact. It is a question cast in bronze. It asks whether our narrative of technological progress is as linear as we assume. It suggests that knowledge can emerge, flourish, and disappear without leaving a continuous trace. It challenges the idea that complexity must always build gradually, that innovation must always follow a predictable path. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us of how much has been lost. Somewhere, in a workshop now reduced to dust, an ancient craftsman assembled this device. He understood the ratios, the cycles, the geometry of the heavens. He translated celestial motion into mechanical form, turning abstract knowledge into something tangible, something that could be held, operated, understood through movement. We do not know his name. We do not know how many others shared his knowledge. We only know that his creation survived, barely long enough to reach us, and so we are left with a fragment of a story, incomplete and unresolved. A machine that should not exist and yet does. A glimpse of a past that feels, in moments, strangely advanced, and in others, irretrievably distant. The Antikythera mechanism does not rewrite history. It does something more subtle. It unsettles it. It reminds us that the past is not a fixed narrative, but a landscape with gaps, places where certainty fades and questions remain. And in those gaps, objects like this endure, quietly resisting our assumptions. What else has been lost? What other moments of brilliance have vanished without record? We may never know. But somewhere beneath the weight of time, history continues to hold its silence.